All right, in this video we're covering the upper receiver. We finished up the lower, now it's time to move the upper. Unfortunately this one already had a couple things installed. One of them is the forward assist. The forward assist is a spring that goes on top of the forward assist, and when you push it in there's a pin, a roll pin that you can, hopefully you can see it there at the top. You put the pin in and it goes in. It's actually quite simple. A lot of them will come with it already installed if you want. And as far as the door, the dust cover, there's a pin that holds this all together. Take it out so you can see it. You'll have your door, you'll have your hinge spring. The spring fits in a groove like so. And there's the other part of the spring that'll go on the edge. You basically just take your pin and you feed it from the front through. Make sure your tip is on the front there. Feed it through the spring on that side. Fish it through the rest of the way. And voila. Oop. Voila. Voila, I made a mistake. My spring went on the wrong side. So let's pull that out and try that again. See, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. Stuff happens. Okay. Let's try that. Oop, let's try that again. Oops, trying to sneak out on me. There you go. Okay, so I got the spring trapped right here now. Now we want to feed it through. Make sure that spring stays on that lip right there. There we go. That's better. All right, and that's it. It's a little tricky, but I mean, like I made a mistake. It takes a second to correct it. It's not that big of a deal. All right, so I'm going to do something a little bit different on this video than I normally do. This rifle needs to be, it's basically being built for accuracy. And so I'm using a .223 Wild barrel on here because it's designed to fire 5.56 .223 basically identically the same. And there'll be a video on the differences, etc., where you can kind of Google it and you'll see the difference between the 5.56, the .223, and the .223 Wild. But the .223 Wild basically gives you the best of both worlds. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what's called a laping here, and what that'll do is it'll just very, very finely grind this so it is definitely 100% true. So that'll be the next step. Like I said, this is not a normal part. I just want this to be 100% true, so we're going to go ahead and double check things. All right, so when you're doing the laping, you need a laping tool. I got mine from Brownells. You just put it on basically any old drill. All right, and then you need to get some compound. I'm using 220 grit from Wheeler. You can use 180, 220, I mean, you know, whatever you want. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take just a bit of this and we're gonna wipe it and try not to make a mess. If you're like me, it's very simple. It's gonna be tough to see this because it's black on black, unfortunately. But all I'm doing is I'm taking some out with my finger, and I am putting it on the receiver edge. You don't need a lot. Think about it as like taking sandpaper, and we're just gonna, you know, sometimes when these things are built, they might just be a smidgen off. I mean, this may not be off at all. I've never done one that hasn't been off at least a little bit, but we're about to find out. And so the way this tool works is this goes all the way down in the receiver to make sure it stays. Oh, let's go ahead and pop that out right here. And we will go ahead and push this straight like so. And then we're just gonna pull the trigger and let it do its thing. So as you can see the silver right here now? This silver, that's where it was not true. And so we're gonna keep doing this just a little bit longer and we'll go from there. All right, so the next part of the build we're gonna do here is we've got our gas block, our gas tube, and usually with a gas block will come your retainer screws and your pins, or your roll pins for the gas tube. The roll pins, they give you two because, well, what if you mess it up? I'm using Roscoe Manufacturing gas block and tube on this build. I believe the Roscoe barrel as well. Actually, 223 Wild, 1-7 twist, rifle length, so it's 18-inch barrel. When you set these up, it's relatively simple. There's your gas hole right here. You just need to make sure that when you affix your tube and put it on, that the gas block is right over the hole, and there's your set screw. Now on the Roscoe, it comes with two, but you'll see, if you can see this, I'm not sure, but the indent in the barrel does fit like so. I'll still put the second one in there just to make sure she stays tight. And you can use a little bit of Loctite on if you'd like. I use red, but you can use the Loctite of your choice or not at all. It's up to you. I do have a jig for the gas blocks. It just makes it a little bit easier. You can chuck it in a vise. It works just as well. Don't need to spend any money if you don't want to, but I do this a lot, so having the tool actually makes sense. And so you always want to make sure that when you're putting your tube in, that the bend is upward. And honestly, you can't mess this up because the hole's already in the tube itself. So line your hole up with the hole in the gas block. Make sure you can see daylight through there, like so. And then just grab your punch. And I'm using a starter, a roll pin starter punch, and then I have just the regular punch. So the starter is nice because, well, it's good for starting. The pin actually goes right into the punch. It makes it much easier. Tap-a-roo and take your punch and just make sure it's even. Like so. It's not sticking up anywhere. Nice and smooth. Voila. Completed. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put the barrel in place and get this all ready to assemble. Alright, so our next step is putting this barrel in, and I am using an Aero Precision handguard, the Atlas. Nice guard, you know, get what you like. That's what's important. And then theirs happens to come with a barrel nut tool, so you can put your torque wrench right in the hole there and tighten up that barrel nut. And of course the Atlas barrel nut itself. Now the pain in the tail here is you'll also usually get some shims, okay? And they're ridiculously thin, but it allows it so you can line up. There's your gas key, the hole, and I'm not sure if you can see it well, but hopefully you can, but the gas tube fits right in there, okay? And so the barrel nut has grooves, right? Now this one, it doesn't really touch, but some barrel nuts will actually push up higher than the tube, so it has to be 100% precise. And so if it's off by a little bit, what you do is you would put a shim in so you could turn it back a little bit more, and that way your gas tube would fit right in there. I'm not 100% certain we're going to need it, but we might go back and forth here just to see what happens. Anyway, again, your barrel is keyed. It only goes in one way. Now, before I put the barrel in, I tend to put a little bit of grease on there. Because when these guys get locked in, they can get locked in really, really well. And with expansion and contraction, you don't need a ton, just a little bit will go a long way. Let me grab a rag here. Okay, looks good. Okay, put her in. I'm going to take my barrel nut and slide it over. Kind of cinch her down to do like a little dry fit or test fit, if you will, and see where we're going to kind of end up. I'll just hand tighten it. Then I'll take my gas tube. Now the gas tube I am putting, actually, you know what, let me pull this out because the camera angle doesn't show it very well. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is take the gas tube, slide it over the front end of the barrel, make sure it goes in there, and see where it lands. So you can see it lands on a hill and not a groove, but when I torque this thing down, it's probably going to put it right in place. So, you know, it's difficult to see. Let me try. See if I can't turn this just a little bit so you can see it, but it's not going to work that way. So let me go ahead and take this out. So you'll see you can see the groove and the rise on this particular barrel nut. Well, when I put the gas tube in, you can hardly see it, but it's on a rise instead of a groove. So it really doesn't touch, I mean, it's leaning on it, but it's really not going to cause a problem, but I would rather it sit in the groove. And I'll go ahead and just manually turn this a little bit and show you what I mean by a groove. So you can see how now you can see how now this line lines up with the gas hole there. And so if I put this on now, you can see it's aligned. My concern is if I shim this, once I put the torque on it, it's going to torque it to the points it might be too far. So this part is always, you know, you're not going to get this done in your first shot. It just doesn't work like that. Whoops. This is a Wheeler, by the way, upper receiver Vise block that you can get the link to in the description below. So let's go ahead and grab the torque wrench and let's torque this thing down. All right, so I grabbed this is the tool they sent with the Atlas, and my torque wrench. And these, the Atlas can range anywhere from 35 pounds and up. So 35 would be, I would say, the minimum you want to do. So let me go ahead and torque this and see where we can go with it. Okay, that's at 40. So let's look and take a peek and see. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. If you can see the line right here, it does not align with the, let me grab something to point with here. There is the gas hole. And there's the line. It's just a hair to the right. So I am going to end up putting some shims on here. I'll start with 2, and then we'll do it again and check that. All right, so I went ahead and took the barrel nut off. These are the shims. I said I was going to start with 2. I'm going to try 3. I don't know, I'm feeling a little saucy today. So you just go over the end of the barrel, slide these guys like so. Put your barrel nut back on. And you want to try to put it to the same torque you had it the first time. I was right about that 40-pound range, so that's what I'm going to shoot for. It's 40 pounds. Right there. Let's see how we did here. Well, it overshot. So I'm going to have to add a couple more shims. So I'm going to go ahead and add the shims and be right back. All right, so remember I said I was going to use 2 shims? Only needed 1. So let me go ahead and pull this out. Using the 1 shim, the line now is right along the top where it needs to be. So the next step is we're gonna go ahead and leave it out for this. We're gonna go ahead and put the gas tube on. So put the gas block over the top. Make sure your gas tube sits in the key there. Want to make it straight. Look at the bottom. And line up with the detent in the barrel. Now what I like to do is we have this second set screw. So what I'm going to do, instead of going into the detent first, I'm going to go ahead and just put this other screw in to kind of hold things in place. If I can get my big head out of the camera. There we go. Okay, so it's not tight at all, but as you can see, it's in there enough so I don't know if you can see the detent in there, but the detent is right under the hole. Actually, it looks like it might be a smidge off, so I will fix that because I want that gas tube to line up as perfectly as I can. Okay, now since that's aligned, I'm going to go ahead and toss this other one in. Like I said, you can put some Loctite in here. I'll probably put some red Loctite when all is said and done. And voila, there's your gas tube. So the next step is putting on your upper. Like I said, this one is Aero. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and remount it here. Slide it right over the top, like so. And the way you lock this Atlas in place is Arrow sends a couple extra parts and pieces here. So Arrow sends over this locking mechanism. There's a right side and a left side. And they basically slide in here, and then you use the screws to tighten it up. So let me get a couple tools and we'll be right back. Okay, so we got the handguard on. Arrow Precision's a little bit different than others, but regardless of what manufacturer you use, it'll come with a set of instructions on where some of them have some set screws, 2 or 3 around the sides. This one has a locking mechanism at the bottom where 2 nuts, and there's a pin in there that basically clicks and locks it in place. But the thing you just need to be sure of is that everything's aligned along the top, right? Everything's straight, true, etc. The next thing that we are going to do is go ahead and put the muzzle brake on this fella. I've got a VG6 here we're going to use. And they all come with crush washers and the brake itself. And so let's get this guy rolling here. Okay, so when we're installing this, you're going to get a crush washer. Okay, and you'll see the crush washer has a rounded, sort of rounded side, cone shaped if you will, and then I'll say a flat side. It's actually concaved on this side. So the narrower side, if you will, is going to go towards the stock of the rifle. Okay. Now with this particular muzzle brake, these notches have to be lined up at the top. So we're gonna just hand tighten this on here. And without tightening it, it's pretty darn close. I'm afraid it's gonna go off a little bit, but let's get the torque wrench out and torque her on there a bit and see where she goes. So let me go ahead and just mount it back on here so I get something stable. Okay, so we grabbed the torque wrench and we torqued this guy down to about 20 foot-pounds. The VG6 is supposed to be able to reduce recoil. I'm going to test it out for sure, but the ports on the side obviously, and then the ports in the top are supposed to expel the gas so it can bring the muzzle back down. Question is, how is it going to affect the optics, etc.? Don't know, but all right, so that is pretty much that when it comes to the barrel. The muzzle brake in this case, about the only thing we have left to do now is to go ahead and put in the bolt carrier group and the charging handle. So let me take a break and we'll grab those. All right, the last couple parts for the upper receiver are the charging handle. I'm using a Warhammer Ambi, and I am using a Roscoe Manufacturing bolt carrier group. These normally come assembled. If you look at the cleaning video, we'll show you how to disassemble, reassemble, etc. But it's very easy to take down and put it back together. But that'll be in the cleaning video if you want to check that out. So one thing you want to do is you want to make sure you lubricate these guys. Depending on who you talk to, they'll tell you how much oil to use. Again, shooter's preference, but I do like to put some oil on these guys because metal hits metal. You want at least some lubrication. And remember, the gas tube will hit up in there. And then on the bolt itself, tend to put some oil on here. We'll push that bolt in and out. There we go. All right, put some of that around. Yes, you should wear gloves when doing this. I'm old school. I'm gonna dye something. I don't think it'll be gun oil though. And rub it around on here. All right, let's grab our upper. Basically, you take your charging handle, and if you put it right down the center here, kind of push up towards the front and pull it back, and it'll click up into place, and then just slide it forward just a hair. And then you take your bolt, and the gas key goes into the groove. There we go, like so. Put them all together, and voila! Get the cute little bulldog face, and that's special. And that's it. That's the complete build of the upper receiver. If you watched the lower receiver video, we have both parts and pieces. Again, assembly. Put one on, oh, definitely helps if you pull your pins out. And that's it. Took the stock off, but you get the picture. You have now your complete rifle, end to end. I'm going to go ahead and throw an optic on here, and then she'll be good to go. So that's it. The upper receiver, lower receiver, you've got the complete build now from end to end. Help out a small veteran-owned business, click the subscribe button, hit that bell when we put out other videos so you'll get notified. And other than that, y'all train hard and stay safe out there.